Hello, beautiful people. How are you today? I am going to talk a little bit about how I grew up in the rave scene and the music industry. This video comes after a night of police security all night going up and down this street, looking at the cartel trying to make their way into my home. There were several attempts. There were 2 trucks that were outfitted with ladders. I heard one of the trucks, they tried to start like the ladder mechanism because my house has an electric fence. So I think they were probably going to try to do something where they would put the ladder over the street onto the house and come into the center of my house and drop down through the center of my house, because that's really the only way you can get in unless you break a window or break the door open, and you'll hear that, so then we'd be ready for them. So the cartel sent two trucks. I saw them, and then when I woke up and tried to take a picture of them and tried to turn my phone on, because I sleep with my phone off due to the signals and radiation always being put through the phone, I actually take the battery out. So I put the battery in, and these guys saw me, and then they just took off. Saw me looking at them through my window. Then the police came, and I flashed my flashlight at the window at them, and then they turned on their sirens, and they saw them too. So I want you to understand this is what's going on against the cartel, because they put the kiss of death on me. Now, I want to explain to you about my Latino friend, the godfather, the most influential person to me, and he was the backbone of the rave scene in Houston, Texas. He was Hispanic. He was the person who was just real. I want you to understand that I am a victim and a child assassin of Project Montauk. And Project Montauk is a program that the U.S. government uses to assassinate people with time travel. I am not kidding. This is what they didn't want Laurel Aston to talk about. This is why Obama wants Laurel Aston dead. This is why Clinton wants Laurel Aston dead. This is why the CIA wants Laurel Aston dead. Laurel Aston is an ex-CIA agent who I've taken on to protect, because she is a person that I feel needs protected, because they want to kill her because of what she knows. But lo and behold, I find out that interacting with her and being around her has helped me understand how to unlock my mind even more, because she kept telling me, you have some serious training. I can tell by just things like this and this and this about you, you have some serious training. And at one time and point, she even thought I was put on her as a handler and an enforcer to control her, because of the things that I was doing and how I was, and it showed that I was a trained asset. So I want you to understand, I've got my memory back, and now the Mexican cartel, through Cesar Augusta, has taken over $70,000 in diamonds from Laurel Aston. His name is on the contract of this house. I represent her. Today is the 1st. My rent is due. We gave this man over a year's rent. I have the receipts for it. I signed them. This man is a criminal. So then he steals $70,000 from me and puts the kiss of death on me after he tried to come into my home with 2 assassins, and now last night 2 more Mexican cartel assassins were trying to figure out how to get in my house. So I want you to get a good, clear picture of how I grew up and what's going on right now, and how the U.S. government has been assassinating people around me, basically running tests. What I mean by running tests is they run tests, they kill people around you to see how it's going to affect time, because they know they can't kill you right now because it would affect too many specific things in their timeline. That's why they haven't killed me. See, people don't understand how precious time is and how it really works and how time travel works. I was trained to understand these things as a child. And now as an adult, I understand them even more. So what I mean by them running a test, I want you to understand what Apoc Mejia was, who Apoc Mejia was, and why they killed Apoc Mejia. Apoc Mejia was the foundation of the rave scene in Houston, Texas. He was my best friend. Everybody loved Abeil. He was the sickest DJ ever. When it came to EQing and doing tricks and being innovative, whether he was playing techno or down tempo or hip hop, he was the man. Apoc, Apocalypse, that was his DJ name. They killed Apoc Mejia specifically like this, and they sent me a message, and I've always known it was a message directly from the cartel, from Montauk. Now I know it was from Montauk. Now I know it was from these future travelers that live amongst us to try to hold their satanic futuristic timeline together. Because that's where they're trying to push this timeline, is to a satanic timeline where Lucifer and his sick, depraved eugenicists rule the world. This is what they were utilizing me in Project Montauk to help do. They weren't using time travel to create a heaven on earth. They are Luciferians and witches. They are satanic. So I want you to understand exactly and precisely how they killed Apoc Mejia. He was a blood sacrifice around me. And for all you old school ravers, this is for you, and you know what they did, but you've never heard this. And I'm going to explain it, and every one of you, I want you to share this. I want you to let the word out what they're doing to Zacchaeus. Because now I know a lot of you have kids and all of this stuff, but it's about the music. Now, Apoc Mejia, let's get to his death. His death came when I threw my first party with the help of Yo E-Fly. I brought down Daisy. I brought down MC Jakes. Even Michaela came down. Now, you people might not know who these people are, but in the UK, everybody knows who these people are. Do you know who DJ Rap is? DJ Rap was part of the Brat Pack from Bristol. The Brat Pack was Michaela, Daisy, and DJ Rap. They were like the females that would just stomp on the guys, because Michaela was a kickboxer. She was like the defense of all the stupid British drunk dumb fucks that would try to get in these beautiful girls' grills. She was the protection. What's up, Michaela? So this is the starting of the rave scene. Let me say that again. The Brat Pack was DJ Daisy from Roughneck Records, a female DJ, Michaela, and DJ Rap, who is still signed to Sony Records and lives in California. So my first party consisted of bringing Daisy down as the headliner, and my homeboy Apoc Mejia, Apoc, was supposed to play this lineup because this was my first party, and this was my chance to give back to Chris Anderson, to all the people that I grew up with that threw parties that put me on. So this party had a sick old school lineup, and me and Abeil Mejia worked on the flyer together. It was his last flyer he ever put out. I want you to understand what they did to him. They had his girlfriend Christian, who I always suspected to be a witch. That was always the vibe I got from her. She likes snakes. She gave Abeil his first 2 pythons. I've never been a big fan of snakes and snake worship. That's satanic, people. So Christian always knew I never really liked her. And honestly, come on guys, all the rave school guys, we all know how happy we were for Abeil when he got together with someone else and left that bitch in the dust. But the fact of the matter is, Abeil's heart and what he promised this girl got him killed. It was a systematic circle that they put him in. It's witchcraft. I wouldn't even doubt if she casted spells to get him to come to Austin, because she was obsessed with him and dabbling probably in witchcraft. So, Abeil dies the night of my party. When we were all DJing and partying, Abeil was supposed to play at the party. He was even on the flyer. So I want you to understand that this is even difficult for me to talk about even now, because what I'm about to reveal, you're going to understand that it was a fucking blood sacrifice from the U.S. government. Now, I want you to understand the numerology of the flyer. This is the 26th. When it happened. I think it was maybe 1996, I'm not sure. I have to check the flyer. But anyway, I'll put the flyer in the video and you people can put together the rest. I've gone over this, I can't tell you how many times in my head, and sometimes I just thought I was like crazy to think this, and that this was a message to me, and this had to do with my family and hits and music, and now I'm 100% sure what it was and is. To Celeste and Ben, you need to know the truth, because I want you to know that the Texas government railroaded the Mejias when they started looking into Abeil's death. Abeil was killed right outside of Vidor, Texas. Vidor, Texas is a KKK town. He was killed on the way to Austin, Texas. He was killed because he said, no, I can't DJ at your first party, bro. I promised Christian I'd DJ at her birthday party. So he drove to Austin with one of his friends that survived. Now I want you to understand what exactly happened. He said, the driver, our friend Abeil's friend, said specifically they were crossing the street with the car, and he said he could have sworn it was clear. This car had to have come out of nowhere, at least going 180 miles an hour, either with no lights or it just materialized. If you know about Project Montauk and these HARP cars and these warp cars that they have, they can materialize people. It's warp technology. They can materialize from their timeline on their road from the future, going 180 miles an hour and materialize back in time at a specific point, and then boom. This is what I think Project Montauk did with Abeil, to be honest. You want to know why? Because the Mejias tried to have the car investigated. The car that hit Abeil was reinforced. The person that survived the wreck, he remembered seeing special things in the car that were put in the car so the driver would survive the crash. The driver was a known white supremacist. So then the car came up missing. The whole thing just got too expensive for the Mejias to pursue, and nothing happened with Abeil's death. I will tell you, when they killed Abeil, it scared the shit out of them and let them know they couldn't kill me. How did it let them know that they couldn't kill me at this time? Because I say it was a test. They wanted to see the repercussions of what would happen if they killed one of us back then at the peak of the rave scene when we were basically fucking legends. When Abeil Mejia was killed at his funeral, still to this day, there has never been that many people to come out for one funeral to show respect for one man, because this was at the time in the rave scene when we were pulling 30, 40, 50,000 people just in Texas, Houston, not to mention Dallas and Austin, all the way to New Orleans with Disco Donnie before he started EDM. Everybody came down to pay respects to Abeil, and it scared the shit out of the CIA. Because it was like we were burying royalty. I can't tell you, there had to be at least over 50,000 people at this man's funeral. Over 50,000 people. It was that massive. The Mejias couldn't believe it. It took Abeil Mejia's mother into a place of seeing her son like mothers look at us as DJs and they're like, what are you doing? What are you doing with your life? You're going out and playing this music, or what's it all about? Are you sure? Are you on drugs? I'm worried about you. It took her from that state to seeing that we are really doing something huge. We are making change for a positive way. That's what happened when Abeil came out. Or when he died, when people came out to see Apoc Mejia, to say goodbye. So, the Mexican cartel wants to put a hit on me. Whatever. So, I want you to understand how I found out about Abeil's death. And I want you to understand how the government used Wilbur Jackson, who was involved with Marvin Gaye's assassination because he was the antagonizer to Marvin Gaye's father about the money and the rights over Marvin's music and how he should get some and how Wilbur should get some. And so then one night when Marvin Gaye's father was drunk after talking to Wilbur, when he was talking to Marvin, he shot Marvin. Wilbur Jackson was the antagonizer, the devil, the demon in that. Wilbur Jackson was also the man that introduced Joe Jackson to Quincy Jackson, which Quincy Jackson is a fucking pedophile, which Quincy Jackson raped Michael Jackson and possibly all the other Jacksons. Quincy Jackson also got Motown and all of those people and basically was the black man to sell everybody's ass to the white man. Wilbur Jackson was that connect. Wilbur Jackson was also the man that came into my life after Kenneth Jackson, whose nickname was Boogie, Black Disciples, who I went to school with at Spring Forest. His name is Kenneth Jackson. After he knocked out the meeting of the Black Disciples and VCs and got a lot of VCs and Black Disciples killed because he knocked out the location of this meeting to my stepbrother, Corregger Cliff Jackson, who's Wilbur Jackson's son. So then Wilbur Jackson meets my mother. After Kenneth Boogie Jackson gets relocated to New York, he's out of there. Then the government sends Wilbur Jackson in on my mother. My mother marries this man within 3 months. When she married this man, they locked me up in a mental hospital because I did mushrooms and I went on a spirit walk. And when I got back, I remembered everything. I couldn't speak. I know now why I couldn't speak, because that spirit walk showed me the time before I was born. Showed me who I was in many past lives, got me in connections with my Blackfoot ancestry. Showed me where I was. Showed me the demons around me. I was 22 years old and this enabled me to speak for like 2 weeks, and to the point to where my mother couldn't understand why I just didn't want to come out of my room. I just needed to be alone, sit and meditate, and just to be left the fuck alone. On the antagonization of Wilbur Jackson, you need to call the police. He needs to be locked up. He wasn't doing anything. So the police come to my room, come to my house. They broke the door to my room in half. The cops did. And then they take me to a hospital where they injected me with medication, where I went from 150 pounds to 215 pounds in 2 weeks. And then I get out, and then all of a sudden there's this woman who I didn't really recognize as my mother, but telling me she's my mom, and that she and Wilbur Jackson got married. That's when they assassinated my mom. So then Wilbur Jackson moves my mother into Hiram Clark. I want you to understand the significance of Hiram Clark. Hiram Clark, High Point, 4315, that is the address. 77053, drive by it if you fucking doubt me. It's where this all took place. Wilbur Jackson is dead, or supposedly is dead. I don't fucking know. I don't care. If he's alive, I wish he was dead. So I want you to understand exactly what the CIA and the government did with Cliff Jackson and Wilbur Jackson to my family, and how they killed Apoc Mejia to send me a message. Within 2 years, my mother's living there. And within, I think I'm living there for like 5 months, I moved to the house because things got rough. And so I do a party to try to get back on my feet, because I'm sick of DJing for other people. And I know I can do my own thing and be successful at it. So they can't do that. I'm part of Project Montauk. They can't have me getting famous. They can't have me doing parties. They can't have me doing money making parties and events. They want me as their bitch as a DJ. They can't have me being the DJ and doing parties. Oh, no, we can't have that. So basically what they did is this. They devised a plan, and let me help you understand. We are talking about psychotic Nazis with time travel, where they set up people in your life 2 years, 3 years, 4 years to push you to a certain point in time. I'm not kidding. Let me say that again. They will put people in your life around you specifically to carry out tasks, even if it's 2, 3, 4 years. Girls you date, girls you fuck, this really great person that knows all the right things to say, and hitting you with the love frequency, with the little mechanism in the pin when he comes up and talks to you, that's specifically mathematically coordinated to your brain and heart frequency to make you feel euphoric when this person comes around. So you're like, oh, wow, this person's okay. I never felt like that. Wow. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll, people. Charles Manson, hippies. Aleister Crowley started all of this MK Ultra, acid, fucking mind control, government, psychotic, psychopath shit. Nazis control MK Ultra and control Project Montauk. They are black programs. They don't exist on government paper, but everybody knows they really do. So I want you to get a clear picture of how these time-traveling psychopaths operate with their time assassin machines. They have Echelon. They have Tempest that are also part of these psychopathic killings. They are assassination machines that calculate all the way down to the specific second when something should happen so the timeline goes just exactly how they need it to. Now you have a better understanding of what I'm about to tell you. 4315 is located on the same street as the Mejias, but it is located at a different part in Hiram Clark. The same street name. So where Wilbur Jackson was living and my so-called sick mom was living was on High Point, and the Mejias, Abeil's parents, they're also living on High Point. Do you think it was a coincidence that Wilbur Jackson just happened to find a house in Hiram Clark on the same street name as Apoc Mejia, who was one of the godfather foundations of the very rave scene that the U.S. military and the Nazis needed to stop because it was raising the conscience of the young people? Do you think that was a coincidence? Do you think it was a coincidence that the night after my party I get a call, I call Chris, or Chris called me, I don't really remember, and he tells me Abeil's dead. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, what the fuck? I thought it was a joke. I go out my house and I go to the Mejias. And right when I'm walking up to the Mejias, I see their house and I see all these people out front, the family, and that's when I realized it was not a joke. So then I see Ben Mejia. That's Abeil's brother, who has also experienced many deaths in his life. I think specifically they killed 2 of his girlfriends, Ben Mejia, and one of which of his girlfriends that died, Tanya, she was another girl from the rave scene. So it's like my house is filled with fucking assassins. My stepbrother, that is an assassin, killed Notorious Big, killed Jam Master Jay. Well, 50 killed Jam Master Jay. He was just a protection on the hit. He also shot Tupac. Cliff Correga Jackson does security for Puffy. For 20 years trains in security. He's also a Marine, also Black Ops, also a sheriff police officer. Or an HPD police officer wanting to retire to become a fucking sheriff. He's a hitman. Used to live in the Katy Cliffs. For you Mexican cartel that don't know why Cliff, that you know Cliff because he's the most notorious hitman, why Cliff was called Cliff, because he had a house in the Katy Cliffs off Mason Road, where Beyonce has a home, where Cut Creator now has a home. Cliff moved from his house in the Cliffs because I exposed it in another video that's still up on YouTube. That's where Cliff got his name, because he stayed by the cliffs. I want you to understand what the Katy Cliffs are, people. The Katy Cliffs were the dumping ground for the mafia and the police, where they would throw bodies to get rid of them and possibly throw weapons and guns in the cliffs, because the cliffs was just a muddy, deep abyss of nothing. You couldn't find anything if it fell down there except for a body if it floated up to the top. Officer Cliff lived right next to the cliffs after the U.S. government closed off this land and said the police were protecting it. And guess who's the police? Guess who's a cop that they assigned to live next to the cliffs to be watch over the cliffs? Officer Cliff. Do you think that's a coincidence that everyone knows this hitman is Officer Cliff that used to live next to the cliffs in Katy, Texas? Katy, Texas is on the outskirts of Spring Branch. Spring Branch is on the outskirts of Memorial. Memorial is on the outskirts of Spring. Spring is connected to Houston. From Katy, Texas to Spring to Houston, it's basically roughly about a 25-minute drive to cross through all of those little towns or little inner cities that are on the outskirts of Texas, which were basically slave trade stops that were set up before they would go out into El Paso or the rest of the United States to trade slaves. That's what Katy, Texas is. So I want you to understand, do you think it's a coincidence that Wilbur Jackson moved into a house where Apoc Mejia is, and my stepbrother's a hitman, and Ben Mejia, Abeil's brother, after Abeil died, kept experiencing more deaths? This is what the U.S. government does to me and Mexicans. This is for Abeil and this is for the Mejias. I'm sorry. You know I've always been there, and you know how always devastated I was over Abeil's death, because I will honestly tell you, when Abeil died, he haunted me for years. He's reborn again. But he was always there. I saw his spirit. He would always tell me the things that I could not accept. He was there for me when I went on the streets, when everybody thought I was crazy, trying to tell everybody that my brother's a hitman and he just tried to kill me. And Kenneth Kelvin Jackson is 50 Cent. All my Rave friends were just like, man, you're gone crazy. That's always what they do. They always have their little shills amongst you and amongst your friends to talk shit. So talk shit now, motherfuckers. All of you. I would like to hit any of you bullshit ravers, and to Mike of After Dark, I know what you were. Brian DeLeon knows what you were. Brian, this is for you. To all you motherfuckers that want to disrespect Brian DeLeon, let me tell you what he got himself into. Albert Rowan. Albert, I'm going to tell the real story about your ass, because people need to know how this shit comes from New Orleans. And how Gary James came down to Houston, Texas and set up shop, set up spy. So I want you to understand about Brian DeLeon, the legend of Houston, Texas, which nobody gives respect to. And I want you to understand the process of After Dark. Brian, don't be mad at me. People need to know this shit. And I told you, me and Brian, I want you to understand that me and Brian were working on writing a book about this. But sorry, man, I can't wait. Because these motherfuckers are trying to kill me, and they still stole $70,000 from me. So I want you to understand After Dark. Brian DeLeon was the man, the glue behind After Dark. Albert Rowan, DJ Biz, who I also used to work with at Atomic Music, started a record store with Chris Anderson and pretty much was the ground level of After Dark. Mike from After Dark showed up at the place in a park where everybody gathered after Abeil Mejia's funeral. He showed up with his other business partner, who they're both ex-cops who got hooked on drugs, and they were handing out drugs to kids, to ravers. Let's be honest. And so then after this, everybody thinks that they're their friends. So then they got in cool with Biz, and then they said, hey Biz, we want to start doing parties. Can you be like the front guy? And Albert said, yeah. Albert don't know how to throw parties. Albert ain't from, really, he don't know how to throw parties. He's doing good in the clubs, that's cool, but Albert didn't know how to throw parties back then. He didn't. Let's be honest, Albert. I'm the poster son you are. Don't be pissed off at me. I'm just telling the truth. Okay? Because I want everybody to understand about Brian DeLeon, another Mexican, another Hispanic brother that gets no respect in the fucking scene. I mean, he does outside of Texas. And when me and him tried to do stuff in Texas, when me and him were both back in Houston, all we got was hateration. Because all the haters know who was the foundation behind this shit. And you had a Mexican and a black man, and all these white kids walking around thinking that they're black. And yeah, we run this now. Because y'all left town and we took over. This is Houston. So, I want you to understand about Brian DeLeon, another Hispanic that was the foundation of After Dark. Like I said, Mike and his other cop buddy, they're both ex-cops, starts the rave scene after they get in good with people from handing out drugs after the day, or actually the day after, the day Apoc Mejia was buried. Because there was a rave that night. The night before. Excuse me. So, I want you to get a good, clear picture of how the government operates. So then, they approached Albert. Albert said, sure, I'll do parties. But then they needed somebody with connections. Brian had those connections. Brian had massive music connections from the radio stations. From when he was younger in Houston. Brian has mad connections, so they needed somebody with mad connections, and Albert didn't have them at the time. He didn't. So they brought on Brian, and Brian was the glue behind After Dark. He put together the parties, utilized his connections to do the parties, and then when they'd make like $40,000, $50,000, Albert, Mike, and the other guy would just, party. And then when Brian would put together the next event, he'd turn around and say, where's the money? Oh, we had to pay this, we did this, and we had a party, and we did this. It was gone. So then Brian would borrow money to do another party to keep After Dark going. And this was the man behind After Dark. And then finally he just said, fuck you knuckleheads. And moved like I did. I moved to San Francisco. And then I got pushed out of San Francisco by the Nazi faggot government. And then Brian moved to San Francisco. And then I moved back to Houston. And then my stepbrother Cliff was told to try to kill me. And he couldn't. I went on the streets and I started rapping. Nobody knew I could freestyle rap. I always kept that like quietly in my head. Like, you know how everybody's like, oh, I'm a rapper in my head? But then when they speak, oh, it's just shit. No, I'm not like that. I'm really a fucking rapper in my head. So then after Cliff was told to kill me, and he couldn't even pick me up with his dirty cops, because I was emceeing on the street, and then when these dirty cops would come at me, I would tell them, I'm Cliff's brother, homie. What, HPD police, you don't know me? Well, I know Cliff. All of you want the off-hour jobs and shit. He be protecting all the fucking black artists. Yeah, I'm the fucking hardest, you don't know me. Stay the fuck away from me, I'm on the streets. You don't fucking want to know me, I'm Officer Cliff's stepbrother, homie. If you're here to take me because he sent you, do you know what you fucking stepped into? He shot fucking Biggie for Puffy. And Mr. fucking Kenneth, aka Boogie, Mr. fucking Nark BD, Scarface wants that homie dead too, Mr. fucking Police. And I would just go on like this, and the cops, literally, couldn't approach me because all the black and Mexican people around me in Texas was just like, what the fuck? Everybody knows. So, now you get a good picture of how things went down in Texas. Anybody know who the fuck Gary James is? Mexican cartel, huh? Gary James came to my work at Atomic Music after I put the thumb on Gary James and told people don't work with him because he was trying to do parties in my town. You know Gary James is, motherfuckers? Gary James came up to me, screaming and fucking yelling, who the fuck are you? How dare you do this and this and this? Do you know who the fuck I am? I built Miami. I am Miami, motherfucker. Who the fuck are you? Just irate with his girlfriend just sitting there with her arms crossed, tapping her foot like, yeah. I'm sitting in a beanbag chair on the floor while Gary James is sitting there yelling at me, kind of spitting on me. And then when he's finished, I said, are you through? And he said, what? Why am I through? And he continued to do it. I said, okay, are you done now? And he said, what the fuck do you have to say to me about this? You know the fuck I am. You know what I have to do to you? And I said, look, this is my town. Do you know anything about my background? I grew up here. You came here from Miami. This ain't Miami. I told him, you better look into my background. Understand how I grew up and where you are. I said, this is my town. Don't come into my record store because I told people not to work with you because you are working with a crew that deal drugs. I'm not going to say their name because they don't deal drugs anymore, but whatever. I told him straight up. I said, I don't deal drugs and the people that I work with don't deal drugs. We do this for the music. And people like you, we started doing this because of people like you. I said, stay your ass in the clubs. We don't want you here. I said that to Gary James and I laughed in his fucking face. And that was back in the day. Gary James's girlfriend never saw anybody say this to Gary James. She started laughing. Gary got so pissed off he didn't know what the fuck to do. But to this day, me and Gary James are cool. So, Mexican Mafia. I will tell you, after this incident happened, I was in the South or in Miami at the music convention. I see Gary. I know what I did. Everybody knew what I did. Nobody could believe it. Gary said, oh, what's up? He shook my hand. And he said, if you need to get into anything in Miami, just say you're friends with Gary James. So, at all the clubs in Miami where they had lines out the fucking door, we walked to the front of the line and say we're friends with Gary James, and we went. That's fucking Gary James, Mexican cartel. I used to work and DJ at Club Spot. before Gary James's partner that he moved down to, Texas with, he got busted because he couldn't get out of the shit. That's Club Spy. I was DJing for Carmen Electra and Dennis Rodman and all the other, famous football players and basketball players. Club Spy. So I want you to understand and get a good picture of who the Mexican cartel blew the kiss of death to in Cancun. Because they think they know everything, right? So, I want you to get a good, clear picture of what Abeil was to the rave scene. Let me talk about the things that he did, okay? Apoc Mejia started the first underground magazine. It was an underground magazine that he printed and he wrote, and it was specifically about the rave scene. It was awesome. It gave us publicity, and it let everybody know what was going on, what was music, what it was all about. Abeil did that. Abeil also was a drum and bass DJ, the sickest. He liked the mashed up, bumba clot, raga, the rude boy stuff, the mash your head up stuff. He spun them big things, A real junglist. A real junglist is a junglist gang, motherfuckers. Junglist is not music. Junglist is the original gangster. Junglist is the original Jamaican gangster. Abeil Mejia played that. Abeil Mejia played techno. Abeil Mejia played hip hop. Abeil Mejia played Cup of Tea, Wall of Sound, all of that really dope UK down-tempo stuff. We were all junglists from the beginning. So I want you to understand that Mexican cartel and where you are. We're in Cancun. How far are we from the Caribbean, motherfuckers? So, welcome to Cancun. This is the truth. Abeil, Apoc, thank you. Rest in peace. We love you, we miss you. I want everybody to know, and I want everybody to understand what's going on. This is for the old school. And one thing that the old school people don't know is I heavily started pursuing an MC career once I left Houston, Texas. And because of my MCing, I'm alive right now. MCing on the streets, freestyling about what was going on when these CIA scumfucks would come at me. I'd freestyle on the streets about everything. About my stepbrother, about Kenneth Jackson, Kelvin Jackson, Boogie. Real name, relocated to New York, Mr. 50 Cent that killed Jam Master Jay. With the help of my stepbrother, Cliff Jackson and Mark Jackson. I'd rap about these things. I never showed these things in the rave scene. In the rave scene, everybody knows me as the sickest turntablist, drum and bass. Mix jungle and hip hop and R&B together and rub it in your face with some sick ass cuts. and speed mixing. That's what everybody knows me as. And when I say speed mixing is because I'm always mixing, either scratching or got 2 tracks on the plate. Carl Cox remembers me. He remembered me when I hadn't seen him in like 7-8 years in Romania. He invited me backstage because Carl Cox put Chris Anderson's tracks on his mix album. Carl Cox is the biggest DJ in the world, motherfuckers. Carl Cox invited me backstage, and Crystal and the fucking motherfuckers in Crystal were so jealous. They're like, who the fuck is this? Carl Cox tells his manager to tell me to come behind stage because he remembered me. Because I was the only black DJ DJing at the party when he came to DJ in Houston. So you're going to remember somebody like that, especially with somebody doing what I do, because Carl Cox also, at one time and point that you people don't know, played drum and bass. Carl Cox came up with the LTJ Bookham crew, honestly. Old Carl Cox tapes, mixed tapes in the UK if you can find them. They are drum and bass. Carl Cox is black, Jamaican. So, little history. Check yourself. Mexican cartel. Keep bringing your motherfuckers to my house. Where are those 2 guys that drove the trucks, huh? Did they make it home? Are their families okay? Did the guys that send them, are they okay? I'm really wondering, huh? So anyway, be blessed. Peace. Walk in the light.